Hey, what's going on, everyone? Bass here. Happy Victory Monday to everyone out there. The Packers are officially NFC North champions yet again for the third year in a row. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the PFF grades for their win against the Baltimore Ravens, Week 15, that victory 31-30. And if you're new here, new to this series, basically we go over the winners or the high grades, and then also the losers or the low grades on both offense and defense. So if this is something that you are interested in and you aren't subscribed yet, please consider going down and clicking that subscribe button, as well as leaving a like on the video. It shows support to my channel. So without further ado, let's get right into it and bring up the screen, and we're going to start with the offensive winners here. And the first on this list is Big Dog or Mercedes Lewis. Another big game for him. He was the highest graded Packer on offense with an 89.9 overall grade, which included a 90.1 receiving grade, 75.2 pass block grade, and a 69.9 run block grade. It was Big Dog's fifth 85-plus graded game this year. He's had some very high-graded games this year. He had 3 receptions for 40 yards. It seems like the Packers ran that boot action 3 or 4 times where Aaron Rodgers leaked weak side boot and pretty much had Mercedes Lewis wide open, and he caught the ball and trucked a few guys, gained some yards. Love watching Mercedes Lewis run. If you're a part of my stream yesterday, we were getting all hype every time Mercedes Lewis touched the ball. He's just been so good for the Packers this year, and everyone loves Big Dog, so I really just hope he can get a ring here with Green Bay. Next up, we have actually another tight end, and that is Tyler Davis, another high-graded tight end this week. He was the second highest-graded Packer on offense. He had an 89.7 overall grade, including an 85.9 receiving grade, 69.9 pass block grade, and a 74.1 run block grade. It was the most snaps Davis saw all year with 19 snaps, and he made the most of them. Now, he did only have 1 catch, but it was for 22 yards across that middle, kind of that seam route there. And he could be another solid contributor to this offense that Brian Gutekunst found. You know, with Robert Tonyan out, the Packers need a tight end that can go vertical. DeGuara kind of hasn't really been that, and they need a guy that can run that seam, can run that post, and kind of take linebackers deep. And Tyler Davis might just be that. Finally, for the offensive winners, we do have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and another amazing game from MVS here this week. And he really showed he's not just a one-dimensional wide receiver, just a deep threat. He did more than that. He was the third highest graded Packer this week with an 84.7 overall grade and an 82.9 receiving grade. MVS had 5 catches on 7 targets for 98 yards and 1 touchdown. And if he turns up like this going into the playoffs, plays very well, and isn't just a deep threat, isn't just running one routes, the Packers offense will be much more dangerous. Now, interestingly enough, MVS actually took a third of his snaps from the slot, which is certainly interesting. It's possibly that the Packers are finding out more ways to use him, which I'm 100% on board for. I think MVS is an extreme athlete. For him being 6'5" and having that speed, he should definitely be used in multi assets of the game on the Packers offense. Now, moving on to the offensive losers this week, and the lowest graded offensive player on the Packers was Dennis Kelly. Just a rough game overall for Kelly here. He was the lowest graded Packer with a 51.7 overall grade, 59.0 pass block grade, 52.6 run block, and he also had 1 penalty. Dennis Kelly allowed 1 sack and 2 pressures. Now, this was his first full game in about a year. It's since his first full game with the Tennessee Titans. So I'm hoping it's just kind of rust he's knocking off. He didn't play a full game last week when Billy Turner went down. And speaking of Billy Turner, he should be back by playoffs at the latest. So Dennis Kelly is just going to kind of be a fill-in until then, but we still need him to, obviously block for 12. So hopefully it's just a rusty game and he'll come back next week and have a good game. Next, for the offensive losers, we do have Josiah DeGuara. So on one end, we have Big Dog and Tyler Davis grading up in the high 80s. On the other end, we have Josiah DeGuara here, the third lowest graded Packer on offense with a 53.8 overall grade, 56.0 receiving grade, 55.0 pass block grade, and a 50.0 run block grade. He did have 3 catches on 5 targets, but for only 15 yards, and saw almost double the snaps that Tyler Davis saw at 35. And I'm thinking that may change going forward. I feel like they still haven't really found the correct usage of Josiah DeGuara, and it seems like Josiah is kind of really struggling to find a true role in this offense. And that's not really ideal for a guy that you drafted in the 3rd round. You kind of expect a 3rd rounder not to necessarily go in year 1 and produce, which he didn't, because obviously with the ACL injury, but you kind of expect him year 2, year 3, he's in 2 now, to kind of start progressing the way you want him to, kind of start filling out what role you want him in, and that just hasn't really happened. So hopefully they can figure that out going forward. All right, so now let's flip it over to the defensive side and start with the defensive winners. And first on this list is Eric Stokes. He was the highest graded Packers player on defense, and by far his highest graded game this year, and obviously of his career being a rookie. Eric Stokes had an 88.3 overall grade, 64.6 run defense grade, 80.2 tackle grade, and an 89.6 coverage grade. Now, he did allow 7 receptions on 9 targets, but it was only for 35 yards, which is 5 yards per catch, and a lot of them were pretty much garbage time. And now the Packers did only win by 1 point. But one of the last Ravens drives, it seems like they just kept throwing curls to Marquise Brown, and Eric Stokes was going to give up a curl over a deep route, so he kind of wasn't really pressing. He was kind of shading way off, which was more scheme than him. So I wouldn't really put that on Eric Stokes. And after Marquise Brown made those catches, he was right there to make the tackle every time. Eric Stokes had 7 tackles, 2 stops, and 1 pass breakup, and he tackled very well, wrapped up, and made the stop instantly. Like I was saying, he had 0 missed tackles. And the Packers cornerback room is so hot right now, set to go into playoff territory, and they're set to see the return of the best cornerback in the NFL in Jair Alexander. So I am so super hyped for this unit going forward. So the world must be changing as we know it. Tyler Lancaster, second highest graded player on the Packers defense this week. If you're a fan of this show, if you watch this show, you'll know why that's a shock. And he's been playing well the past 4 weeks. So Lancaster had a grade of an 81.1 overall grade, 74.2 run defense, 70.9 tackle, and a 69.6 pass rush. Lancaster had 4 tackles, 3 stops, and 2 pressures. And like I said, he's had a grade of 75 plus in the last 3 of the last 4 games. So like I said, if you've been watching the show, it's kind of been an anti-Lancaster one, but for the right reason. He was always graded low. He was on the defensive losers side of this show practically every single week. So hats off to Tyler Lancaster for turning it around. He's been very solid in the snaps that he's gotten as of recent. Lastly, for the defensive losers here, we do have Preston Smith, another good game by P here. He had a 71.6 overall grade, 69.4 run defense, 74.2 tackle, and 67.0 pass rush. Preston Smith had a total of 5 pressures, 4 hurries, 2 tackles, and 2 stops. And after this game, that puts him at a total of 52 pressures, 2 under Kenny Clark actually on the year, and that would put him at 12th in the NFL for pressures as an edge player. And Preston Smith has been very disruptive all year, really turned it around from that not so great year last year. And I just can't wait for us to get Z back, because Rashawn Gary's been so disruptive, Preston's been so disruptive, and bringing Z back will just help them, get more breathers. And obviously we know what Z is. Hopefully he can come back at full 100%, but we know how good he is. So that'd be so awesome to have all 3 of those guys come playoffs. And then finally, for the defensive losers, first on this list is someone you would 100% expect after watching this game, and that is Darnell Savage. Not a great showing by him, but I can't really blame him too much. He was kind of thrown on one of the best tight ends in the league, man-to-man. It's not an easy task. Darnell Savage has a huge seismic mismatch on Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews is a great player. So to have to cover him man-to-man, it's a hard task. He was the lowest graded Packer this week with a 39.3 overall grade, 43.6 run D, 28.7 tackle, and 48.8 coverage. And as I said, he was man-to-man with Mark Andrews all game. I kept saying I wanted the Packers to switch to Adrian Amos on Mark Andrews, or if not that, double him or both. I just thought leaving Savage alone just straight up didn't work, and we saw that early on. And as I said, Mark Andrews is an amazing tight end, so I'm not saying he's not, and I'm not saying Darnell Savage is awful. I think it's a mixture of both, that you can't single cover Mark Andrews like that, and yeah. Savage allowed 6 catches on 8 targets for 96 yards, and of course those 2 touchdowns. Also allowed a passer rating of 154.2, and he also missed 2 tackles. So Darnell Savage actually had a worse graded game in Cincinnati earlier this year, but just like that one it was a one-off game, and Darnell Savage will be back. Lastly, for the defensive losers, we do have Kingsley Keke here. He was the second lowest graded Packer on defense with a 51.8 overall grade, 42.6 run D, and a 61.3 pass rush grade. The lack of Kenny Clark really hurt the entire defense. Obviously Kingsley Keke here as well, but especially in the run defense department. Keke did account for 3 pressures, which is great, but he didn't have a single tackle in all 45 of his snaps. And it's been pretty much a very inconsistent year for Kingsley Keke. You know, he started the year through pretty much all of preseason hurt, injured, didn't really get any preseason snaps. Then he had some great games this year. Then he had some really bad games this year. So just a very inconsistent year for Kingsley Keke. I expected a lot more of him. If you go to my videos in the preseason, I did say I expect a big year from Keke. I said it over and over and over again. Hasn't been that. Gonna need him to play well come playoffs, though. So those are the PFF grades. Overall, this game was a lot sketchier than it needed to be. Green Bay needs to close out better. They've been really good at closing out games this year, but this one, they just weren't. Special teams was still bad, just not as bad, which, whatever. It's going to be bad regardless, so whatever. Can't really do much about it right this moment. Running quarterbacks are still hurting the Packers defense easily. That's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. They need to contain better. But hey, the Packers still got the W. They're still 11-3, and the Packers own the NFC North yet again. They control their own destiny to be the #1 seed and allow the playoffs to go through Lambeau. So let's bring on the Browns this Saturday on Christmas. But that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave the comment down below if you agree or disagree with some of these grades and explain why or why not. But on that note, I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.